Hello everyone. In this class, we'll try to learn about what are the properties of cardiac muscle fibers. The learning objectives would be list the properties of cardiac muscle fibers, appreciate the hierarchy of pacemaking activity in cardiac pacemakers, explain why cardiac muscle can't be tetanized, and understand the application of all and none law, compensatory pause, and staircase phenomena in cardiac functions. Name the properties that can be studied in beating heart and properties that can be studied in a quiescent heart. Heart is a vital organ as cessation of its activity, that is cardiac arrest, for more than few minutes is detrimental to life. It pumps blood continuously throughout life due to many special properties inherent to its muscle. Some of the properties of cardiac muscle fibers are automaticity, rhythmicity, conductivity, contractility, excitability, distensibility, long refractory period, functional sensation, extrasystole and compensatory pause, all are non-law, staircase phenomena, length tension relationship, frequency force relationship, and load velocity relationship. Automaticity, the ability of the cardiac muscle to continue to contract regularly even in the absence of its nerve supply is referred as its automaticity. This is possible due to the spontaneous generation of impulses by SA node, primary pacemaker of the heart. Automaticity is also a property of other potential pacemakers of the heart like AV node, his Purkinje system, ventricular muscle. Rhythmicity. Rhythmicity refers to rhythmic excitation of the heart. So this is called as autorhythmicity. A normal heart beats in perfectly regular rhythm as interbeat intervals remain constant, which is due to a rhythmic discharge of the pacemaker, that is SA node. SA node is a primary pacemaker of a heart as excitation begins in the SA node. The rate of discharge of SA node is 60 to 100 per minute, the highest among all the pacemakers. Therefore, the normal heart rate is within the range of 60 to 100 beats per minute. Pacemaking tissue in the heart. Three intrinsic pacemaking tissue, that is SA node, AV node, and his Purkinje fibers. When the intrinsic pacemakers fail to discharge, ventricular muscle generate the pacemaking potential. The term pacemaking potential refers to the spontaneous time-dependent depolarization that leads to action potential in an otherwise quiescent cell or tissue. The SA node, being a fastest pacemaker, override the activity of all the other pacemakers. Therefore, SA node is primary pacemaker. Failure of SA nodal rhythm results in activation of AV node, the next in the hierarchy to take over the pacemaker activity. Thus, AV node and other cardiac pacemakers are called as secondary pacemakers. These are the different pacemaker tissues and the rhythm and the rate which they generate. SA node generates 60 to 100 beats per minute or rhythms per minute. AV node 40 to 60, his bundle 25 to 40, Purkinje fibers 25 to 40, and ventricular muscle fiber produces 15 to 30 rhythms per minute. Conductivity. The cardiac muscles conduct impulses generated in the heart. Impulse produced SA node is conducted by specialized conducting pathway to the ventricular muscle. The impulse then spreads rapidly in the cardiac muscle to different parts of the heart. Contractility. The cardiac muscle contracts regularly and rhythmically in response to impulses generated by SA node. Ventricular contraction enables heart to pump into the heart. Uh, it enables the heart to pump the blood into the circulation. Thus, increased contractility increase the cardiac output, and decreased contractility decrease the cardiac output. Excitability. Excitability is the ability of the cardiac muscle to respond to different stimuli. Cardiac excitability can be altered by various factors like concentration of ions and hormones, and most importantly, the state of autonomic activity, that is sympathetic and parasympathetic tones. Sympathetic stimulation has a positive bathmotropic, that is increased excitability effects, and vagal stimulation has a negative bathmotropic, that is is going to decrease the excitability. Distensibility. The ability to stretch is called as a distensibility, which occurs due to the compliance of the cardiac muscle. This helps in adequate filling of atrial and ventricular chambers during diastole. Decreased ventricular distensibility due to increased stiffness of cardiac muscle occurs as in cardiomyopathy and infiltrative diseases, which decreases end diastolic volume, which in turn decreases the stroke volume. Long refractory period. Action potential of ventricular muscle has a long refractory period. Refractory period of the muscle is the period during which the muscle does not evoke a response no matter how strong the stimulus is. It is divided into absolute and relative refractory periods. Absolute refractory period of ventricular muscle is about 200 milliseconds and relative refractory period is about 50 milliseconds. Duration of action potential of cardiac muscle is 250 milliseconds, which is almost same as that of duration of the mechanical response. In ventricular muscle, as the duration of action potential is almost same as the duration of its mechanical response, the refractory period extends to the most of the part of the mechanical response. Mechanical response of ventricular muscle cannot be merged as a fresh contraction, cannot occur before the completion of the previous mechanical response, and therefore cardiac muscle cannot be tetanized. Okay. So here you can see the action potential in the cardiac muscle fiber, and this is the mechanical contraction. Functional sensation. Cardiac muscle is a functional sensation due to the presence of numerous gap junctions. Therefore, muscle fibers contract almost simultaneously. There are two syncytia in heart, atrial and ventricular syncytia. Extrasystole and compensatory pause. Extrasystole. When sufficiently stronger stimulus is applied in the relative refractory period, an extracontractile response occurs. This is called extrasystole. This contraction occurs earlier than the normally expected one. Usually, extra stimulus arises from an ectopic focus in the ventricle. What is compensatory pause? The natural stimulus, that is impulse arising from SA node, falls in the refractory period of extrasystole and does not evoke an response. Therefore, natural contraction is missed and long pause is recorded following extrasystole, which is called as compensatory pause. So this is the extrasystole, and so this is the compensatory pause, and this is the post systolic accentuation. Post extrasystolic potentiation. The magnitude of contraction after compensatory pause is usually higher as the ventricle gets more time for filling during the pause. Increase end diastolic volume increases the force of contraction by Frank-Starling mechanism. So this is called as post extrasystolic potentiation. Post systolic extrapotentiation can also occur independent of ventricular filling. PEP may occur due to accumulation of the more amount of calcium ions in the myocardial cells during compensatory pause. All or none law. The all or none law states that magnitude of response of a tissue to stimuli remains the same irrespective of the strength of the stimuli. Subbold threshold stimulus, the muscle does not respond at all. For threshold intensity stimulus, there will be optimum response, and the height of contraction does not increase following application of supra-threshold stimulus. All or none law occurs due to the two reasons here. All or none law nature of action potential, and it is also because of the syncytial nature of the heart muscle. Okay. So this is first where you have given a sub-threshold stimulus, and this is a threshold stimulus where you have obtained optimal response, and third one is a supramaximal threshold where the response remains the same. Staircase phenomenon. If the quiescent heart is stimulated repeatedly, keeping the interval between stimuli less than 10 seconds, the magnitude of first 3 to 4 contraction progressively increases. This is called as staircase phenomena. The amount of calcium ion released during each contraction is not completely pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum. as the second stimulus is applied within 10 seconds. So this increases the quantity of calcium available in the next stimulus. Therefore, the second stimulus evokes bigger response. During the first contraction, the temperature in the myocardial cell increases, which enhances the enzymatic activity for the muscle contraction. Therefore, the second stimulus acts as a beneficial effect of increase in the enzymatic activity of the first one. The first contraction decreases the viscosity of the sarcoplasm due to the increased temperature. Thus, the resistance provided by sarcoplasm for the second and subsequent contraction is significantly lower than the first one. So, this is the staircase phenomenon where you can see gradually there will be increase in the amplitude of the muscle contraction, then it plateaus. Length tension relationship. The force of contraction is directly proportional to the initial length of the muscle fiber within the physiological limit, which is known as Frank-Starling's law of the heart. With the increase in the length, tension increases, reaches peak and then decreases. The length of the muscle fiber depends on the level of preload, which is the end diastolic volume. Thus, as the ventricular filling increases, the increase in end diastolic volume, stroke volume increases. This is called heterometric autoregulation of cardiac output. Frequency force relationship. Increase in the force of contraction due to increase in the heart rate, that is frequency, is known as frequency force relationship. So this is also known as Bowditch phenomena. However, increase in the myocardial performance is restricted to a limited increase in the frequency. Load velocity relationship. The relationship of velocity of shortening to the load imparted on the muscle with which the muscle contracts is called as load velocity relationship. The velocity of contraction inversely proportional with the load that acts against it. The velocity of muscle shortening or contraction decreases with increasing afterload. That means shortening is faster with lower loads and slower with higher loads. So it should be noted that the shortening velocity is maximum when there is no load. So this is in brief about the properties of cardiac muscle fibers. Thank you.